So I met Manny in August 2013 when she was coming back to work after being off with a bad back. Her team had just been disbanded, so she was coming to me not knowing me at all and not knowing the rest of the team. So our first meeting was going to be as Manny was literally returning back to work, and for my point of view, doing the manager return to work meeting, checking she was okay and well enough to be back at work.
I'd gone to see my GP about my bad back, which I fractured about 10 years ago. Longer than that, I think, actually, now. Get how old I am. I'd gone to see my GP about that, and she actually noticed that I said I wasn't sleeping properly, and she asked me to do a questionnaire type thing and diagnosed me with clinical depression, which came completely out of the blue. Like, I never thought I would be diagnosed with depression. So I returned to work in a neck brace and felt a lot more comfortable talking to Zoe about my back, because you can see it, and not about my anxiety or my depression.
So I'd looked at Manny's fit note from the GP, and it didn't really say an awful lot, did it? But it had down the medication that Manny was taking. So I kind of Googled that and realised actually this isn't all about Manny's back and her neck. There's more at play here. Now, I'd had quite a lot of experience with mental health issues, especially caring for my brother who's bipolar. So I was fully prepared to just sit down and have the chat with Manny. But within 2 seconds of meeting her, I realised that she just wasn't ready.
Yeah. When I came back to work, I don't think I was still going through therapy at the time, as well as the doctors trying to figure out which combination of medication I should take. So I just felt completely broken. I didn't feel myself. I still wasn't sleeping properly. With some of the meds, it was the other way around. So by the time I actually got to sleep, I wouldn't wake up till 12 hours later, and it felt like having a hangover in the morning without the fun of the alcohol. So I was in a pretty bad place.
Yeah, so it was much easier for Manny to talk about her back and her neck. You really didn't like talking about any mental health issues or anything that was going on with you, did you?
It took me a long time to kind of accept that I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I think the hardest part of it was not knowing when I'd be better. So I'd go to my GP and I'd be like, how long is it going to take? She would say, how long is a piece of string? I'd come back and talk to Zoe about it, and she'd be saying the same thing, but I couldn't get it, I couldn't understand it. I just wanted to know. I'm a very logical person, so I wanted to know when I would be better and how long it would take for this, recovery to finish. And you kind of Zoe said to me that, it might be with you for life. And I think that's when I realised that I really needed to focus on how I was going to be able to cope with it day to day.
Yeah, so that was really where most of our talking came in, that we looked at how can you cope with the day-to-day issues, things like phone shifts, fire evacuations were an absolute nightmare, weren't they? And it was all at a time where we were trying to put things in place, but actually you were really struggling to come to terms with just how ill you were at times, weren't you? And I remember very much, there was a very dark day where you came to work, and Manny literally came in tears, and I was, whatever is wrong, and she told me that she didn't want to be here anymore. And I was thinking, well, it's work, you're not having a great day, perhaps you don't want to be here. And then she actually explained to me that that wasn't what you meant.
I'd actually started self-harming and was feeling very suicidal, and I couldn't talk to my parents about it because I just didn't want to disappoint them. They'd given me everything and I couldn't have that conversation there. I didn't feel safe at home, but coming into work I did feel safe because I knew I couldn't do anything stupid. But that obviously put Zoe in quite a difficult position.
But it became, I think, the turning point, didn't it? That was when both of us were like, right, actually, work's not as important as you, and now we need to get you well, and if you want to be well, then there's things out there we can do.
Talking to my counsellor, I realised the importance work had for me. It gave me the purpose every morning to wake up and have something to do and something to live for. So I realised that in order to do that, I needed to find something that would help me cope day to day with what I was going through. I got in touch with Remploy, who are a free service, government service for mental health conditions to get people back into the workplace. So I got in touch with them. I was assigned a vocational rehabilitation consultant, and she was wonderful. To both myself and Zoe, she used to communicate and talk about how the meds would affect me, and just generally how I could cope with getting into work, because some of the things that really triggered my anxiety were busy DLRs or big crowds of people, not having control. Living in London, it's pretty much standard, so you've got to learn how to cope with it. So breathing exercises, mindfulness and meditation were some of the things that really worked for me, and yeah, that was really the turning point.
She was really supportive to me as well, because actually it's quite difficult that not only are you a manager, you're a human as well. So when somebody's sat in front of you feeling that distressed, the natural inclination is to try and help, and actually I wasn't necessarily the best person to give Manny that help. It was more about helping me just be a manager to support Manny. But it was definitely our turning point, wasn't it? We worked together to put all sorts of coping mechanisms in place, down to things like an adjusted chair for your back, so there was physical pain, didn't hurt so much. Looking at ways of coping with things like phone shifts, how we could help Manny just do day-to-day things in the most simplistic way, whereas before they'd been real barriers. And actually being quite open about it with your colleagues and the team. So one of the things that putting in place all of these different adjustments meant for Manny was that she could then focus on becoming a really, really good adjudicator and using her coping strategies to just stay at work and be able to be a productive adjudicator, to the point that you're now a grade 3, one of my top performing team. And actually, if you looked at you just on paper and performance-wise, you wouldn't even know that anything had been wrong.